If you want to improve your dancing immediately and you want to change your dancing, change your mindset. Change the way you think about dance, because everything starts here. And you can literally change the trajectory of your dance development just by changing what you focus on. So if I'm someone that's focusing on turn patterns,
Hey, hey, so I am now on the line with a Mr. Oliver Pineda, who is a 10 times World Salsa Champion. He is also the founder of Latin Motion Dance Company. He's been dancing salsa for over 30 years, and he has been a choreographer for So You Think You Can Dance, as well as Dancing with the Stars. He's born in a musical family. He's a percussionist, and he was born in Sydney, Australia. Is that correct?
correcto.
How you doing today, Mr. Oliver?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course, of course, of course. I really appreciate you coming on, Oliver. I guess really to start this segment, I would be very interested to know, what was your childhood like growing up in Sydney, Australia?
Well, Australia being the land of opportunity, it was a really pretty smooth childhood. Things here in Australia are very stable, and so I grew up in a good school, good area, good family. Very fortunate to be able to have been born here and grown up in this part of the world. Although it's so far away from everything, it's actually that sometimes is a good thing, and yeah. So that was my kind of upbringing. Dance wise, it was a little challenging coming from Australia, because back when I started salsa, which was about 30 years ago, there was no YouTube, there was no, very little internet, I think, if any. And it was very hard to kind of get access to what was going on in the rest of the world. In fact, I didn't even really know that salsa existed around the world. I was literally in my little bubble, my little cocoon over here. So, in some ways that was difficult, because it was a bit challenging for me to get inspired, or at least to get external inspiration. But at the same time, that kind of worked to my benefit as well, because I kind of developed my own style. And then when I did end up going out there into the salsa world, people noticed. And they noticed because I looked different, I danced different, and also because I was from Australia, and I think nobody ever thought that anything other than kangaroo in Australia, So yeah, so it's kind of good and bad, but overall it's been really, really good, and yeah, no complaints.
I definitely understand that, and I definitely understand. When you say you develop your own style, I definitely understand that. Let me ask you this. Going back to your childhood, sir. What were some of your favorite childhood hobbies? What did you enjoy doing?
Hobbies. I actually I was always very athletic, into sports and things like that, soccer. But I actually invested quite a few years into martial arts, and specifically Taekwondo. I got to black belt first Dan, which is a pretty big achievement. I was pretty young. I think I was still in my teens, um, or going on 20 around there. Um, and I used to teach little kids martial arts. Um, I got a little bit competitive with it. I started competing in tournaments and things like that. And I think that's where it kind of stopped because at the same time that I was competing in martial arts and I was sparring, um, full contact and semi contact, I was also simultaneously competing in dance. But this was in ballroom dancing, not salsa. And so I remember one occasion where I sort of rocked up to a ballroom competition with a black eye from a previous martial arts competition, and then that's where I kind of realized that it's not going to work. The two of those are not really going to balance out. So I ended up having to choose, dancing or martial arts, and I chose dancing. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, I also come from a ballroom background, and I actually I've been doing salsa for longer than I was doing ballroom. So I did ballroom for about 7 years, I think, but I've been doing salsa, for more than 30 years, and I started with salsa. But the ballroom training really did give me the competitive edge when I entered the salsa world. There was no, though at least there was not many technical salseros out there. There was a lot of flavor, a lot of sabor, a lot of passion. Um, Actually, it's really funny because most of the performances back then were actually based around violence. Yeah, like based around, like the salsa brava days with Francisco Vasquez and Luis Vasquez and Johnny Vasquez, and it was always like punch, block, kick, slide, salsa basic, punch, block, cartwheel, punch, kick, Suzy Q. It was like that. And so, there was like, it wasn't as much of a competitive scene. It was more just performances and just, that kind of, yeah. So to answer your question, soccer, taekwondo, and ballroom dancing. And then the ballroom dancing ended up giving me that competitive edge when I ended up coming into the salsa world and competing in the salsa world, and then subsequently winning. So yeah.
I definitely understand that. I definitely do. And so, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
I want a toy truck. What? But Santa Claus. Oh, hold on one second, Santa Claus. Hold you right back. Hey, if you could leave a like and subscribe for the show, that would be amazing. Let's get back to the episode.
and so if I'm not mistaken, I believe both your parents are from Chile. Is that right?
Yeah, son chileno, yeah.
So I'm very curious to hear from you. What was it like growing up in that household? With two parents from Chile. What was that like for you?
Well, obviously, having the culture around me helped. Although salsa these days is universal, there's amazing dancers coming out of every part of the world. So, nothing about having to be Latin American, although it does help. And when you grow up with the music, I grew up with a lot of the music because of my dad. My dad is a very well-respected percussionist and musician here in Australia, timbalero actually. So I grew up, listening to the music and watching my dad play, and then from a young age I started playing. I started with bongo, then I moved on to congas, and then timbales. And then I started working with my dad in his band when I was about 16. So yeah, growing up, in that house was I was very grateful, and then my parents, they're they're obviously Chilean born, but then they've spent a lot of their years here in Australia as well. I think they've spent like 40 years here now. So they do consider themselves Australian as well. So it's kind of a mixture of the two cultures coming together. But, Australia, like Australians, if you look at their culture, it's beer, drinking, surfing, and, barbecues. So there's not much dancing, So I'm kind of grateful that I grew up in a Chilean household.
Tell me this real quick. I don't know if you know this, but do you know what brought your parents out to Australia?
Pinochet. Yeah, the dictator.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. In Chile, they were under a dictatorship, and a lot of people were fleeing the country. So they actually, they came here out of necessity. They needed to get out of Chile because it wasn't in a good economical state.
Okay. And so I imagine, do you still have family in Chile? Like, or have you been able to
You know,
get in
I've got
contact
like
with them?
I've got like distant cousins now. I was close to my grandparents, but they passed away. So now it's just like distant cousins and aunties and uncles. I'm not really that close to the extended family. My family, like my immediate family, is actually very close but very small. I don't actually have a big immediate family. It's me, my sister, my mom and my dad, um, and that's about it.
I
So yeah,
understand
it's
that.
kind of probably not typical of Latin American families. Usually they're pretty big, but yeah, maybe that's part of the sacrifice we made by moving to Australia. you, you lose all your connections with family.
I understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that. You kind of spoke on this a little bit earlier, man, but I want to ask you this. Um, how important was music growing up in your household?
Well, it's pivotal. It's pivotal. For me, like I wouldn't have achieved everything I've achieved if it weren't for the background that I was able to get from growing up around the music and having a father that's a musician. Also, my cousins, my two closest cousins, are very respected musicians here in Australia as well, percussionists. So growing up around music and learning about the music, and just by osmosis, just by watching, it's not like I really sat down and had a class. It was more just by being around it that it just became me, and then it became my dance. So yeah, crucial.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Up in Australia, you start getting involved in taekwondo, and you say you get into your dad's band and everything. Um, I guess at what point or how do you get introduced to salsa? How does that come about? Is that from your parents?
How did you get introduced to salsa? Yes. So my I think I was about 10 years old. My parents started attending a social salsa class. It was just for a bit of fun for them. Meanwhile, I was not wanting to stay home alone, so I used to tag along. I used to tag along with them to their class, and then I used to just sit. I used to just sit and maybe do my homework. I don't remember what I used to do, to be honest, but I used to just sit and watch or do my own thing. Back then we didn't have iPads and iPhones, so I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing something. And then my memory goes as far back as remembering that I started to move my feet under the table. I would watch what they were doing, and then I would kind of like be doing it myself. Um, and then I think on one occasion, my father didn't turn up. Like I think he stayed home or something like that, or maybe he didn't want to dance. Like they were there, but my dad just sat down, and then my ended up buying me in replace of my dad. And I actually got up onto the dance floor and participated in the class. Was with my mom. And then it wasn't long after that where a little girl, she would have been about 10 years old, 9, 10 years old, because I was about 10 going on 11. A little girl turned up to the same class with her parents, and her name was Luda. And then because I was, you know, tiny and she was tiny, they partnered us up. They naturally partnered us up, you know, I guess as a bit of a joke, like, oh, look at these guys, look how cute they are. And little did they know that we would have partnered each other for the next 20 years. So, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Actually, listen, I'm very curious. You may not remember this, but you know, what was your beginner stage like in salsa?
Okay, my beginner stage. Well, if I'm understanding the question correctly, when I started salsa, I didn't have any dance background, so I wasn't doing ballroom yet. So I obviously was being young. I picked up pretty quick, but I looked like a chicken when I was dancing. I used to flap my arms like this, and I used to like put my head forward like this. So little did I know that I was learning Boogaloo at the time, but but yeah, um, I look, you know, obviously funny, but I actually picked up pretty quick along with Luda, and we very quickly around about at the age of 13, we got put. So I was 13, she was about 12. So we would have been learning for about a year or two salsa, and then we got put into a probably the biggest Latin American Brazilian show in Sydney. So it was this group, it was called Brazilian Latin Fantasy, and they specialized in entertainment for weddings and functions, corporate events, festivals, birthdays, you name it. And they did everything from salsa to samba, capoeira, lambada, batucada, which is the Brazilian drumming, everything. They just did a whole bunch of dances. And so because we were like so little, but we were actually pretty good for being, you know, so young, they put us in their show as a bit of a spectacle, you know, as like a, oh, look at this cute couple, you know. Um, and yeah, and so from about the age of 13, we started performing. And we weren't getting paid, we were just doing it for experience and whatnot. My mom was managing me at the time. And then I remember like a few years passed, like 2, 3 years, and then we started getting paid like $20 for a show, you know, or like $30 for a show. Yeah, because we were kids, you know, I was 15 years old. So for a 15-year-old to get paid $20 for like 2 minutes, that was like, I was like rich. You know what I mean? So that was my beginning. That was my beginner days. Um, yeah, and then I think when I was probably 15, maybe, or 14, something like that, that's when I started ballroom dancing, or maybe even a bit earlier than that. But I started ballroom dancing, and then ballroom dancing is very competitive. So then I started competing, and so I was getting the performance experience from salsa, and I was getting the competitive experience from ballroom.
Okay, I understand that. Let me. I'm very curious to hear this from you. Um, do you think that children have an advantage in over adults when learning something like salsa or types of social dancing?
Yeah, I think they have an advantage in a way because naturally they pick up things quicker. So it does give them a head start in life. Anything that kids start and kids do at a young age, they can potentially master that. They can be very good at that skill if they continue, obviously. Plus, they don't have the same inhibitions as adults. So adults will be very self-conscious, whereas kids are not. So kids are more likely to give it 100%, whereas adults might give it 80% because they're worried about how they're going to look. Yeah.
I definitely understand that. I definitely do. So yeah, so you start performing with Luda. You join that dance company. Um, I guess what made you get into ballroom? Was that because of the dance company or your family? Oh, yeah, yeah. What happened with that?
No, so what got me into ballroom was Luda. So when I met Luda, she just began, or she had already been doing ballroom for a little bit. So I was more of the salsa kid, and she was more of the ballroom girl. And then after a year or so, um, I kind of got convinced because I wasn't convinced to do it. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. But I remember it was my uncle that actually kind of convinced me to give ballroom a go and to partner in ballroom. And then I did that, and then it was one of the best things I ever did for my salsa career.
And I wanted to ask you this actually. A little earlier, you said that your parents were taking salsa classes, so I guess they didn't know much salsa. Is salsa not popular in Chile, or is it not the popular dance?
Well, no, like they obviously in Latin America there is a lot of salsa, but the type of salsa is very old-fashioned, very sort of outdated in a way. But I guess having moved to Australia, they were probably just looking for an outlet. You know what I mean? They were just looking for something to make them feel more like, you know, at home in Chile. Yeah.
I understand that then. So so you start doing ballroom, and you're also performing with this Brazilian company. So I guess take me through, I guess, like the next 7 years. So are you you're doing the ballroom? You say you did that for 7 years, and are you still performing with the Brazilian company?
Yeah, yeah. So I performed with them for, I think it would have been like almost 10 years. So there was quite a lot of years, I think right up till I was probably about 18, 19, maybe around then. I was still doing shows with them, but then I outgrew them. And um, I got too good. No, maybe I got too expensive. That's what it was. But no, I sort of like I started focusing on other things. I started getting more into my music. Like I said, when I was about 16, I started working in a band. I was working in an over 18s nightclub, although I was 16. So I was getting in there illegally, but I was getting in there because I was with my dad and working. Um, and yeah, so I was in that band. I was 18. I went into another band, which was on my own. It wasn't my dad's band. And I did that for another couple of years. Um, so yeah, like I kind of just moved on to other things. And then when I was about 18, I started my company, Latin Motion Dance Academy. And actually, around that time, Luda and I, we split up. we stopped dancing together. And when we stopped dancing together, she pursued ballroom, whereas I pursued salsa. And that was one of the catalysts that actually caused me to create my school, because I wanted to focus on salsa. And I met someone, her name is Natalie Reese. And in the club that I was working in the band, she was a flamenco dancer. She was performing, she was doing shows. And she was much older than me. She was about 15 years older than me, but she had a good business acumen. Was business minded, and she saw me, and she was the one that kind of planted the idea to start a school. And then we ended up starting it together, and she was the brains and I was the artist. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I get you on that. I had another question, but I think I forgot it. But so you start. You say you started Latin motion dancing at 18. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been running that school for almost 20 years now, or yeah,
Okay.
for 20 years. Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. I think you said it yourself. Dancing is not very, it's not a very popular hobby in Australia. So I'm very curious to hear from you. What?
It used to be.
Oh,
Now
okay.
it's changing, but yeah.
Okay. Well, so yeah, even how old is that? 20 years ago, I guess. How long did you say you were running it? However long ago,
Yeah.
what was that? What were the first couple of years like? Running your own dance studio, your own dance company. What was that like for you?
Well, look, to be honest, my memory doesn't is a little vague. Like I tend to not have the best memory with things. But being 18 and being an artist, I guess, there wasn't much difference for me, because I wasn't the one running the business, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So, it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I actually started feeling like I have a business. And then it wasn't until many, many, many years after that where I actually started acting like I have a business. So it kind of, the business has been part of my life for a long time, but it took me quite a few years for me to actually take it very seriously.
I understand that, and I want to ask you this. And I think I remembered it. So you've been dancing pretty much your whole life. Was this always your life's goal to become a professional dancer, or is this something that you fell into?
Yeah, no, really, really good question. It was definitely something I fell into. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I consider myself so lucky, because even though I've worked really hard, um, in another way, because I just fell into it, I consider myself fortunate that I found my calling. I found the thing that I'm meant to be doing, and it's a feeling. It's not just because I'm good at it, because I'm, if I would have invested in tennis, I might have been a tennis world champion, because I'm athletic and I just have that competitive spirit and I'm coordinated, but maybe it wouldn't have been I wouldn't have felt the same. You know what I mean? And there's a feeling that comes, yeah, like finding that purpose, And actually somebody asked me the other day, I was listening to like a personal development um, podcast, I think it was, or something audio, and they said that they put the hypothetical out there that if you were to win the lotto tomorrow and you never had to work a day in your life, would you drop your job like in a heartbeat? Would you just give it up? And I thought about it, and it was really interesting because my answer was no, I wouldn't. I would, even if I never had to work again, I wouldn't stop doing what I'm doing because I love it. And if anything, I just put more money into it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I want to say, man, that's so amazing, and I want to say that you're extremely blessed to be able to say that. Is what I want to say.
And I consider myself blessed. Like I don't take it for granted, and I really wish, I wish that for people. I wish for people to find that because it's a beautiful feeling, and I see people, unfortunately, that don't find that. I see them, you know, like living lives that are they're not happy and whatever, they're bored, or and I really encourage people to break the shackles, to you know to break free from those chains and really try new things in their life, in that in like with that chance of possibly finding something that makes you happier, even if you're probably not financially as wealthy, because wealth can be measured in different ways. So you might not be as financially, set, but you might be a lot happier in your life.
Um, let me ask you this then. Kind of on that note, man. This may not be like the best question to ask, but for people who feel like their lives are mundane and they're trying to find a better way, I guess, can you like tell me, I guess, like one thing, like where can they start? Can you tell me like where should they start?
Well, first of all, that I think that epiphanies don't happen unless you create the space for them to happen. So it's like, you know, um, people are usually in a routine. They're in a habit. They're in a routine, right? Wake up, same time every day, go to work, same time, same coffee, whatever, routine. Um, and if somebody realizes they're not happy after a while, they're not happy, something's missing, you know, I think they need to break that routine. And, like, for example, this coronavirus thing that's going on in the world at the moment has broken the world's routine. Like, people are isolating themselves, and there's a lot of talk about the negative impact of that, but it's also really positive in the sense that it gives people an opportunity to reassess their life and potentially change the trajectory of their life. Yeah. So I think if anyone's out there like wanting to make a change, they, should try to consider creating the space in their life to, to like, yeah, creating the space uh, to kind of bring on that clarity, if you know what I mean.
I think I understand you. I think I understand you.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you this, and I'm very curious to hear because I have not heard much about it. But how has COVID-19, how has coronavirus, how has that affected you, your business, as well as how has it affected Australia?
Yeah, well, we're almost in lockdown. We're not quite in lockdown now, but it's probably going that way. My business, my dance academy that I've had for just about 20 years, for the first time in about 20 years, it's closed down. So and we actually a lot of the industry leaders, we communicated to each other, and we collectively made that decision to do that. So all the salsa schools pretty much all the main schools, the larger schools in the industry closed at the same time. We all decided that that was the responsible thing to do, even before the government issued that into effect. And we did that because obviously partner dancing is one of the worst things that you can be doing to, to sort of spread the virus. And we felt there was a responsibility for us to set an example and to behave in such a way that shows that we care about our people, our students, and it's not just about money. But yeah, it's been like super tough. It's been super tough because obviously we all have rent and mortgages and bills. So, we've been in the process of contacting banks and landlords and, trying to get deferrals. But, the whole world's been doing that. It's not just us. So it's been pretty tough. But for me, like on a personal level, like on an emotion, like on a kind of well-being kind of level, it's definitely been much needed. Yeah.
You say much needed. You mean just this space and time for a break, or what do you mean? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but it's not even the physical break because I'm young, I'm fit, like, I can keep going. Like, it's more the mental and emotional break. Actually, this it's interesting because it's funny because this week, like as we speak, I was actually registered into a 10-day meditation course whereby you don't speak in 10 days. It's total silence. It's called Vipassana. And I was really looking forward to that because I felt like I needed that reset. I needed to press the reset button. And then in the end, it got canceled because of the virus. But in the end, I ended up getting my own version of the course at home. You know what I mean? Because I've got like ample time on my own. So yeah, no, it's been challenging, but that's when you experience growth, is by going through challenges and by feeling the discomfort, and it's not comfortable for people to be on their own. It's not comfortable, but if you can't love yourself, then how are you expected to anybody else to love you?
This is true, man. I kind of want to, go back. I want to go back to, you're 18, you're starting Latin motion dance.
Academy.
Academy, blame my as academy. Yes. I guess at what point do you start teaching? Was it as soon as you started it back at 18, or when do you start teaching?
Yeah, I was actually teaching before I opened my school. I was about 13 or 14, I think, or maybe even 15. I can't pinpoint the exact age, but it was around then. And my first ever experience in teaching was a private lesson to an older lady. And she was somewhat like a family friend. And then I used to go to their house. I used to go to her house with my parents. And then I used to teach her privately in her living room. And then, we would have dinner there and then we'd go home. So that was my first kind of memories, and my first experience of teaching was privately. And then it wasn't until I opened the school that I started, opening my teaching to the public and to classes. Yeah.
So yeah, please tell me about that, man. I think you know, having a skill in a particular activity and being able to teach that thing are two different skills. So I'm very curious to,
Amen.
I, I'm very curious to hear from you. You know, what was your beginner stage like in teaching?
So, what was my beginner stage? Sorry, did you ask? What do you
So,
mean by that?
when you first start learning something, your beginner stage, when you first start doing something, what was that like for you?
Oh, okay. Well, I think I was just winging it. I was just winging it. But I can tell you that one of my fortes is teaching, and one of the things that kind of developed my teaching, well, two things. One is my ballroom, um, because ballroom dancing is very technical, and they break things down to the 10th degree. Like, um, there's a lot of precision in ballroom dancing. So I learned a lot about the body, and a lot about technique, and a lot about the way, the delivery of the technique, the way the person delivers the information, um, and a lot about patience as well, because ballroom dancing has a lot of patience. When I say patience, I don't mean the coaches are patient. I mean they require you to repeat movements, like, you know, an infinite amount of times. So you need to develop that patience, in order to excel. And also, um, Natalie, the my business partner that started the company with me, she naturally was a very, very good teacher. She was a very good communicator, very good at English, very good at delivery of information. And I think I just naturally picked up a lot by being around her at such a young age, and just watching her teach, and just kind of learning that way. And now it's just like second nature to me. It's like, teaching for me is like breathing. It's, I do it without blinking, without thinking. And I've had over the years people that have actually studied in university teaching. They come up to me and they actually commend my teaching, and ask me whether I have ever actually, whether I have a degree in teaching, because I I actually used uh, methods that they have learned in university, but I don't even know that I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. So yeah, so I'm sort of pretty I guess fortunate, that I can back up my dancing with my teaching, because you're absolutely right. Being a great dancer is different to being a great performer, is different to being a great social dancer, and that's different to being a great competitor, and that's different to being a great teacher, and that's even different to being a great coach. Because you can be a great coach, and you don't even have to be able to dance to be a great coach. You know what I mean? And I always tell people that. I always tell people that everybody needs a coach. Even Olympic athletes need a coach. And when you think about it, the coaches are not better than the athlete, you know? So yeah. So that was my I can't even remember the question now, but but that's me.
No worries, no worries. I got two questions for you, man. But
Ramble on a little bit, so just tell me if I'm rambling.
nah, you're fine. You're perfectly fine. You're fine, sir. I got two questions for you, and I don't want to forget them. But you spoke on how the Olympic coach isn't better than the athlete. So let me ask you this thing. What is the role of a coach? Is it just like a motivator, or what is it?
Yeah, well, obviously the coach has to have an in-depth knowledge of whatever the art is, whether it's movement, running, swimming, dance. Um, but but they physically don't have to be able to do the movements, but they need to be able to convey the movements. And when it comes to coaching, there's actually a lot of mindset training, and in a sense, it's almost like a therapist, because one of the biggest barriers to people's achievements and accomplishments is themselves. They are their worst enemy, and they stand in their way. I've got this quote in my studio that says, "Look in the mirror, that's your competition." So, and that's what a coach does. A coach is supposed to get you out of your own way so that you can fulfill your full potential.
I understand that. And the second question I wanted to ask you, you say that you've received a lot of compliments for your teaching style. For someone out there who is interested in becoming a teacher of something, or for teachers, people who are currently teachers but they're looking to improve, what words of wisdom or hints or tips could you give to someone who wants to improve their teaching ability?
All right, that's an easy one. Put your students first. One of the most common things that I see, particularly in the salsa world, is teachers that use teaching as a platform to showcase themselves. So it's like, these really amazing dancers get on stage, put a mic on, and then they bust out these 1,000 a mile combinations for like 5 minutes in a 45-minute class. And meanwhile, there's like, I don't know, 200 people behind them, like students. And out of the 200 students, probably 10 are actually following what they can do. But it makes for good social media footage. Someone that does that, it's very inspiring, but it can also be off-putting, because people wind up feeling shit about themselves, because they can't follow, and 99% of the room is going to forget what they learned, because there was an information overload. So even though I am fully capable of doing that, I can definitely get up there and confuse the hell out of everybody if I want to. I don't do that. I get up and I teach them how to do their basic step. I might be the 10-time World Salsa Champion, but basics are king. I'll do a whole hour on Suzy Q's. I don't care, but there's not many, and it's not that they're not capable of doing that. Like, it's just that there's not many dancers out there that actually value the people learning more than just inspiring and having a good time. Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely makes sense. And I kind of, before I even asked you that question, I figured that was the answer, honestly. Put your students first. But I wanted to hear what you had to say on it.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Like, I think part of it, it's not like it's an excuse, but I think, these international dancers that do 52 congresses in a year, like they travel like every single weekend. I think they must get over it. Like, they probably must need to do it to stimulate themselves in a way. But still, like, I don't see enough I don't see enough of, don't get me wrong, I see quality dancing, but I don't see enough of quality teaching.
I definitely understand that. I definitely do. So I guess speaking on that, could you could you maybe give me some hints or tips for beginners and their basic stuff? Anything that you could help someone who wants to improve their basic stuff?
Well, how much time do we have?
I don't want to hold you up for too long, but
Uh,
just like one or two things.
yeah. One of the things that I really value most is body movement. And that's actually one of my specialties that I'm known for around the world is my musicality and my body movement. Uh, but you know, the best dancers in the world, they have the ability to look inspirational and not be doing anything. Do you know what I mean? So, when you kind of develop that quality in your movement, but it doesn't have to be complex movements. Like if your basic looks like a Bentley, right? Like you don't need to race a Bentley. You know what I mean? When you get in a Bentley, you just cruise, right? And you just look like $1 million. So when you make your basic look $1 million, that's it. And part of that is the quality of your movement. And let me tell you something. It's harder to dance slow than it is to dance fast.
I believe that.
Let me repeat that. It's harder to dance slow and do it well than fast. And too many people are out there, and this goes hand in hand with the whole kind of social media, let's just show off on stage kind of thing. Um, because there's so much fast dancing out there that unfortunately it just breeds more of the same. And people need to stop. They need to stop. They need to slow down, just like this freaking coronavirus. It's asking everyone to stop and slow the fuck down. Same thing in everyone's dancing. Um, so definitely focus on body movement. And the better they get their movement, the more they're going to start to enjoy that. And the more they're going to value dancing slow, because they have the time to move their body, you know what I mean, with that kind of slow, sabroso music.
Real quick, let me ask you this. Give me. You kind of did. You said slow down, but can you give me something practical, something actionable that someone can do to turn their basic step into a Bentley? Something that they can do like right now to practice.
Right. Well, what they can do is go to www.oliverpineda.dance. Subscribe to my subscription website. No, but in all honesty, I've got a body movement DVD. It's 3 hours long. There's a lot of content, a lot of quality in there, and in that, I talk about the the fundamental movement of your basics. And one of the most important thing is the counteraction in your body. So your hips counter your feet. Your rib cage counters your hips. Your arms counter your shoulders. So like, for example, if I put my left shoulder forward, I need to bring my right hand across my body. And if I bring my right shoulder forward, I need to bring my left hand across the body. That's a counteraction. And so learning the correct counteraction in your body and the way that your body relates, so the way that your feet relate to your knees, that the motion in your ankles to your knees, and then your knees to your hips to your rib cage to your shoulders to your arms to your hands, the way that everything relates. So in all honesty, if anybody wants to learn like actionable, tips and skills, they should get my body movement footage. Obviously, I've got DVDs that I sell on my websites, but the best thing to do is to go to my subscription site, because I've got more than 500 videos already online, and every month I upload approximately 10 videos, and I do different things. I don't just do salsa. I do a lot of shines, rumba, Afro movements. I do a lot of technicality sort of stuff, talking about 360 Collect, talking about, I have a whole session, a whole edition on dips, different ways of dipping a partner. I talk about etiquette, body movement, musicality, boogaloo movements, pachanga movements. There's a bit of everything. There's a bit of zouk in there as well, because zouk is one of my favorite styles of partner dancing after mambo. There's a bit of everything. So, it's literally like that website is like a brain dump for me. So anybody that wants to learn from me, that's the next best thing, oliverpineda.dance. And go and check it out. And if you're not a member and you go and you just enter your email, you get sent, I think it's 6 free complimentary videos to your email address, and that gives you a chance to see, what's in the site. You can also navigate the site without being able to click on the videos. You can actually see all the content that's in the site before you subscribe. So definitely I recommend anybody out there, they can just subscribe for 1 month, or there is a 1 year option. And there's also a lifetime member option as well. So
That's
yeah,
awesome, man. That's awesome.
go and check it out.
Yeah. I guess I kind of want to switch it up on you real quick. This is just some notes that I had on you. Tell me about the Sydney Rueda Dance Company.
Sydney Rueda Dance Company was the name of my business before it was Latin Motion. So we started off as Sydney Rueda Dance Company, and then we moved into the name Incredible Latin Motion. Incredible was like incredible, but INC Rueda Bull, BLE, Incrueda Bull, because it was mainly Rueda at that time in Cuban salsa. Incredible Latin Motion, and then people couldn't pronounce Incredible, so then we just got rid of the Incredible, and then we wanted something a bit more formal and a bit more serious, because of the quality that we were providing. So then we ended up becoming Latin Motion Dance Academy, and now I have one of the most established academies in Australia, whereby I don't only teach public classes and social dancing, I also teach, the sort of technical aspects of salsa that you don't really find many places around the world. So yeah.
Okay, I understand that. And I did not know that was the original name. I got.
Yeah, kind of evolved.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Everything is real quick for you, but it's not quick. It keeps going.
Oh, if you're running short on time, then I understand.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to run soon.
Okay. All right. Well, then let me ask you just like 1 or 2 more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
All right. For your background in musicality, um, I guess can you give me just real quick some hints and tips for people who want to improve their musicality?
Well, if you want to improve your musicality, that requires you again to stop doing what you're doing, sit down and listen and learn. Listen and learn. So educate. regarding music. So for example, if I want to let's say if I want to like increase my experience drinking wine, let's say, like if I want to have a more profound experience with the wine that I drink, then I should learn a little bit about what goes in the wine and learn about the difference between one wine and another wine, and why this wine costs $2,000 and this wine costs $2. You understand? And so, and that's the example I give to people is there are people out there that are professional wine tasters. They don't taste wine in the same way that I do. I don't care what I'm drinking as long as it makes me feel a certain way, you know? So I'm very ignorant when it comes to wine. Whereas, you know, I know that if I want to change my experience drinking wine, I need to educate myself more. The same thing goes with food. You know, I'm sure chefs don't taste food in the same way that I do. You know, like for me, cheese is cheese, but to a connoisseur, to a cheese connoisseur, or to a chef, right? They know the difference between one cheese and another cheese and the way that it tastes. Does it make sense? So if you want to improve your musicality, then yeah, you need to educate yourself with music. Learn music, learn an instrument, learn from someone that understands music, that can convey that to you. And the best people are dancers that are musicians, because you can learn from a musician, but they might not be able to relate to you. Or there's a lot of dancers that teach musicality, but they have no musical experience whatsoever. So if you can find a dancer that's also a musician, then that's a bonus. And that is oliverpineda.dance. Because I actually have a musicality DVD, which is on my subscription website as well. It's probably one of the only like DVDs out there that is specifically for musicality.
Okay, sure enough. And real quick, this is the last question I want to ask you. Can you give me one tip to make anyone a better dancer immediately?
Immediately. Was that like the Matrix? You take the blue pill, you take the red pill. All right, if you want to improve your dancing immediately and you want to change your dancing, change your mindset. Change the way you think about dance, because everything starts here. And you can literally change the trajectory of your dance development just by changing what you focus on. So if I'm someone that's focusing on turn patterns, right? If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. You know what I mean? You get the same results. So if you want to improve or change or diversify, or, you know, yeah, then you need to realize, hang on a minute, maybe I need to actually look over here. Maybe I need to work on my body movement. Maybe I should stop my turn patterns for a good 6 months to a year and just learn musicality. You know, maybe I should work on something good and I feel good. Yeah, so honestly, that's the best piece of advice, because if you want to change anything in your life, it all starts with this thing in here.
Yeah, definitely. Oliver Pineda, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me. And sorry, it's been a bit of a challenge to organize this. It's been I don't know, probably a few years now. I saw your message the other day. It was sitting there from like a long time ago. But no, no, thank you for having me. Thanks to all my fans out there. Really appreciate it. I know I don't travel as much these days. I've got two daughters that I'm looking after, but I'm gonna get out there again. You'll see more of me. And yeah, no, thank you very much. Like I said, check out my website, oliverpineda.dance. And what else? Stay safe, and focus on your mental well-being and physical well-being during this time as well. It's really important.
And real quick, Oliver, tell me this real quick. How can people reach out to you? How can they get in contact with you? I know you said your website. Any other ways?
Yeah, well, on my website, there's like a service ticket option. You can actually email me through that. But then I also have Instagram, and then as well. I've got two fan pages, Oliver Pineda and Oliver Marcelo Pineda as well. So, it's not that hard to find me, but definitely check out my Instagram account, because I'm going to be coming out with some cool challenges soon, actually, to challenge people at home, and get them up and dancing. And then I'll give away like a free online private and well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oliver. I think this will do it for this episode of the Two Left Feet podcast.
Thanks a lot, man. Take
Hey,
care.
take it easy, Oliver.
Bye-bye. Peace.
That's all it is. Hey everyone, if you made it this far all the way to the end of the video, I want to thank you so much. My overall goal with making these interviews and these episodes is to give a voice to dancers, to give them a platform to speak their story. So if this is of value to anyone, then that means the world to me. My overall goal is to give value to the dance community. So if you find no value in this, then I urge you to please let me know where I can improve on. I truly want to, just give value and content to the dance community. So please let me know how I can improve, where I'm messing up, because to be 100% honest with you, I'm learning along the way as I do this. I truly am. So to be able to interact with the dance community, it means the world to me, because it gives me feedback and it lets me know what I'm doing right, where I can improve upon, what I'm doing wrong, which I feel like might be more important. So please, if you all could comment and just let me know what you think, it means the world to me, because that feedback just helps me improve. So please comment as well. Please like and subscribe. That means a lot as well. But I want to say thank you so much for just watching this, because it means the world to me. I want to take you on this journey of the Two Left Feet podcast. I'm very excited for it. So once again, thank you so much.